Hi, this is Michael with Brainy Face Project. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you've been here before, then welcome back. It is nice to see you again. I'm in Affinity Photo, and this is part of the Adobe Exit Plan series where I'm helping people switch over from the subscription-based Adobe Creative Cloud to other applications which are either free or you pay and you have access to it in perpetuity. And that's what Affinity Photo is. It's an application that it's not free, but you can purchase it and then you get to keep using it because you actually bought the license to use the software and you don't have to pay the company every single month. So this is the first video I wanted to get in. We're putting our toe in the water today. We're just going to go ahead and explore how to create a new document and get started. Now, by the way, if you don't use Adobe Photoshop, this is also a good series for you because it's just basically showing you how to get into Affinity Photo. And we're going to get deeper and deeper into the more advanced stuff as we get deeper into the series. So make sure that you subscribe. And I've got a playlist set up here. I'll have a couple different playlists, one for the Adobe Exit Plan and then one for the specific Affinity Photo videos that I'm doing. So let's go ahead and jump into this. If I go to File in the upper left-hand corner, I've got 9 different options for new, which seems excessive, but it actually speaks to the fact that Affinity Photo is a very powerful application which allows you to do an awful lot. So if I want to, I can go into New and create a brand new document. It by default should have that new screen pop up when you install the application. It should pop up, and I'll show you how to turn that off in a minute. So we'll come back to this in a second. But what I want to show you right now is the New from Clipboard feature. And what I'll do is I'll move Affinity Photo over to the right-hand side of the screen. On the left-hand side of the screen, I've got my browser open, and I'm on Sora.com, which is a text-to-image AI generation platform owned by OpenAI. And I've created just a ton, hundreds of different images in here. And I've created a prompt which allows me to create these really cool action figures. So it looks like little vinyl toys, like a little bobblehead or a Funko Pop or something like that. These do not exist in the real world, but they do exist in my virtual collection here. And I'll give you 100 points if you know what movie this image is from, because this one just about everybody knows in the world. I'll give you 200 points if you can name the characters' first and last names here, but I'll give you 1,000,000 bonus points if you can actually say the line that he says in the movie in this famous scene here. I'll let you do it in your head, and there you go. It's Samwise Gamgee from Lord of the Rings, and it's potatoes. You can boil them, mash them, stick them in a stew, but what you can't do is you can't click and drag and drop him over into Affinity Photo. So maybe they'll change that in the future, is the ability to drag and drop. I think that's a super time saver, but what you can do, and this is Chrome again, so I don't know what browser you're using, but if you right click on an image in Chrome and then you choose copy image, it puts it into the clipboard. And now over in Affinity Photo, I can choose File and I can choose New from Clipboard. And before I click on that, have you ever had that challenge? I know I've dealt with that in Photoshop for years, where I have something in the clipboard and then I create a new canvas and then I paste, and then it's too big on the screen, and so I'll do my Control T to transform, and then I'm dragging and trying to fit it within the screen. It's easier just to put it in the clipboard, and Affinity Photo makes it real easy because you can just do New from Clipboard, and boom, there he is. We've got Samwise Gamgee freaking out about potatoes, and so I've got him here on screen. By the way, I'm a keyboard shortcut fanatic, and so I'll be listing a lot of keyboard shortcuts along the way. And if I want to fit him to screen, I can hold Control on my keyboard and press 0, and that is going to fit him within the screen. I use Windows, and so if you're a Mac user, then you can use your Command key instead of the Control key. And if I mention Alt, you'd use the Option key on your keyboard, of course, if you're a Mac user. So there I've got my Samwise Gamgee. By the way, speaking of keyboard shortcuts, I do have a keyboard shortcut to do New from Clipboard, but I think they have included every single keyboard modifier there is on the keyboard here. Control, Shift, Alt. So you're going to look like that with your hand. Control, Shift, Alt, and then you press N. If you want to change your keyboard shortcuts, you can do that. And as somebody who's transitioning away from Photoshop into another application, you probably have your motor memory shortcuts where you're so used to using them. You can customize this. And the way that you do this in Affinity Photo is by going to Edit, go to Settings, and then on the left hand side here you just go down to Shortcuts, and then you can scroll through this list and you can look for the thing that you want to modify. There is New from Clipboard on the screen. You can see that horrendous keyboard shortcut of Control-Alt-Shift-N, and you can delete that. I'm not going to delete it, but you can click to delete it, and then you can put in a new keyboard shortcut as long as it's not already used by the application system or whatever. Then you should have success in adding that in. And you do have the ability here to choose by different personas, different categories and stuff, which I'm going to talk about in a different video here. But we'll probably come back to keyboard shortcuts, throughout the series here and talk about how you can customize things, but just wanted to mention that. So New from Clipboard, you can change the keyboard shortcut. Now, I'm going to close this image here, and I'm going to say no. If you wanted to open up an image, it's very easy to do that. You can just double click on this big open gray area here. And I'm in Windows, so I do have the ability to change the layout. If I go to this teeny little icon here and I click on the little arrow, I can click and I can scroll to go through these. So I can go really big, extra large icons, go down to large, go down to medium. I can go to small, list, details, etc. I tend, when I'm in Affinity Photo, is to keep this at either the large icons or extra large icons. And you can see I've been having way too much fun building out this virtual collection of plastic toys that don't exist in the real world. But if I want to, I'll just double click and open up one of these images here. So easy way for you is just to double click. That would be also obviously, file open with the ubiquitous keyboard shortcut of Control O, but double clicking on that main open area will allow you to open up your images. So I'm going to close her out, and then we'll go to File and then go to New. Lots of options in this screen here. I'm going to try to keep this pretty concise in terms of how this is laid out and the different options. So on the upper left hand corner, you can go to Account, and I like to go to Account if for no other reason. They should have a sound effect that plays on this screen, which is a choir of angels. Because this text here, your license is active and will never expire. That's music, man. That's music to my ears. I love hearing that. I love seeing that on screen. And that's a great thing about Affinity Photo. You buy it, it's yours, and you don't have to pay them again. There's no monthly license fee. So another thing that you can do is you can turn this screen off. If you don't like a big box poking you in the face when you open up an application, you can turn that off so you don't see it. I'm going to leave that on here, but then I'm just going to go to New. And in the New box here, you've got lots of different categories. So these profiles are grouped by categories, and they are set up by the different output sources that you'll likely be using. So you have print, which is when you're actually going to be doing something off of a laser printer or an inkjet printer. If you're going to have something professionally produced, and you're going to need to have like bleeds, you need to have all of your margins very concise, you need to have gutters and all of the, just making sure that when they cut the stuff off of the gigantic papers that they're going to be producing, that you've got that set up properly. You're going to want to go to Press Ready. You have Photo, which is when you're working obviously in photos. Web tends to lay out the standard sizes that you would use for outputting to different types of devices for web. So you've got like full HD. If you're doing HD video, you have different social media presets that they've got in here. And then with the devices, this also is very Apple centric here. They've got a lot of different devices. And the reason for this is Apple uses a different system. So instead of using like dots per inch or pixels per inch, they use a points system. And if I click on one of the Apple device profiles here, I can see here that I've got points set up. And so page width is points. And so if you're doing stuff specifically for Apple devices, that point system comes in pretty handy there. And so the document units, that's your point system. And then they have different profiles set up for like the different Apple watches. So like I've got my little Apple Watch here. So you got different size Apple Watches for the faces, and that would actually change the density as well. You get into architectural, they've got some architectural presets in here, and so you've got specific margins and color for that. When you get into the color settings, you've got red, green, blue, CMYK, RGB, red, green, blue is good for screen. Cyan, magenta, yellow, and black is good when you're actually outputting for 4-color process printing. And then you have additional categories that you can set up for yourself if you wanted to create this for different social media accounts, different clients, or however you want to stay organized, you can do that as well. Now, as you're scrolling through these, you have the ability to throw a heart at one of these items by just clicking on the right-hand side. And I'll go down here to I'll just go to web, and I'll choose this one here so I can go into 4K. So I've got that. I'll throw a heart at that, click it. And then the way that you toggle that filter is just going up here and clicking on the heart at the top, and that's just the toggle for the filter to show favorites, and then it just shows you the appropriate category and then the profiles within them. And then of course the last thing is your ability to change the orientation, and you do that by simply clicking on these icons. So you've got landscape, which is wide first, and then you've got portrait, where it's actually the height is prioritized. So like a piece of paper, you can picture that's your standard portrait and landscape. And the other thing I want to mention here, though, if I go into like one of these presets here that I've got for web, if I go into layout, you can see that it's got the width and the height, and then it gives you the dots per inch. If you click on the pull down here for dots per inch, you can change this. So for Windows devices, 72 pixels per inch standard. For Apple devices, 96 pixels per inch. That's been around for years. That's pretty standard. But as you increase this, I mean, I could spend an hour or two just talking about why resolution is so important. I'll summarize this by saying, if you choose a number that's too low, you can't get those pixels back later. You can kind of cheat and use a process called interpolation to go through and mathematically try to deduce what the actual dots would have looked like, but it's way better to get a higher value at the beginning. So even when I'm doing stuff that's going to be mocked out for websites, I anticipate that I may need to put that onto a magazine ad layout or a brochure or something like that. So I tend to usually work with a minimum of 300 dots per inch. That's just what I do, because I can always throw those extra dots away later, and I can save out that image in different file formats. But what I cannot do is get those dots back later by just making them up, right? And so that setting in here under the layout is extremely important. And then you also have these tabs here. You can choose your color profiles that you're using and the color format, like RGB, red, green, blue for screen, CMYK, which is cyan, magenta, yellow, and black for that. And then you have others if you need to match, if you prefer to work in the lab color space as well. So that's, I think, most of the stuff I wanted to show you in here. The only other thing would be to create additional categories if you want to. I'm going to turn the heart off, and then I'll just go down to the bottom here. I can click on create category, and we'll just presuppose here that I have a client name, client ABC. And when I click OK, now I can see if I click on the pull down, it actually has a different category, so I can jump to that pretty quickly. And I could also scroll using my scroll wheel or moving up and down that way. But with client ABC now, I can actually put in new profiles. And if I want to, I can just click on the create preset. And one thing that I find, and I don't know if it's just me, but we'll see where it ends up creating this profile. Like I'm clicking on client ABC. Now I'm creating my preset, and I'm just going to say like social media. We'll do like Insta for Instagram. We'll go category, and we're going to go to web here. And then for the icon, I'll change it so it looks like a phone. And then I'm going to click OK. And then let's see, did it create it in the right spot? It didn't. So where did it actually create it? Yeah, it created it all the way up here. So I guess it's trying to help me by automatically putting it into that category for me. Image placement. Yeah. So what I can do now is I can just click and I can drag that down into that folder. And I don't know, tell me if there's a way that you know of, but I've always just had an issue whenever I try to create a new profile or a preset, is that it usually puts it in the wrong spot there. And I don't know why I'm doing that. I guess, like, yeah, I can't just click on the actual icon there and say create it within. All right. So the other thing is obviously open, which that just gets you back to the dialog box that we were at before. So while you're in this screen, you can click open. That's the same as doing the double click on the main screen or doing Control O or choosing File Open. And then I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about templates because this to me is a little quirky. If I click on templates, it's empty and I don't know what to do in here. So I look down here and I have just a little icon that says add folder. But I'm going to come at this from another direction, which is you actually need to save a document as a template. And so I'm just going to cover that in here because I think this is all part of this whole interface. So templates, it's empty right now. And what I'm going to do is just click cancel. I'm going to open up an image. We'll just open up like, we'll open up this image right here. And I'll talk about one more thing that's kind of quirky to me, which is guidelines. A lot of times when I'm working in a document, I want to know dead center. I want to have guides where I can actually have my margins and stuff like that set up. In other applications, if you click and drag from the visible ruler on the screen, it would actually drag a ruler. I'm holding down my mouse button right now, but absolutely nothing is happening. And that to me is confusing. It's not intuitive. What I have to do in Affinity Photo here is I go to View, and then I go to Guides, and then it greets me with this dialog box. In this dialog box, I have the ability to set horizontal and vertical guides. And it will automatically default. Like if I just click on this little preset here, this little icon, add new horizontal guide, what it does is it automatically puts it into dead center. So I've got a horizontal guide, and then I could change the location of this, and we'll spend more time in future videos going through guides, but I just wanted to show this to you really quickly because it ties into the templates. So I said I wanted to have a vertical guide and a horizontal guide. So I just created those by clicking on that new icon in both cases. I'm going to click close, and now I've got my guide on the screen. And what I could do is I could save this as a template. And to do this, what I need to do is not file and then save as, but I actually go down to file export as template. And if I do file export as template, I actually created a folder on my computer. That's standard folder creation stuff, so I'm not going to show you how to do that. You just create a folder on your hard drive where you want to store your templates. That's up to you. And so I've done this with my Adobe Exit Plan series. I've got a folder called Affinity Photo, and I created templates. And now I'm just going to save this as, and it by default says that this is a Affinity Photo template.af template, and I do save. So now I think that I've actually got a template set up, but if I go into File on the menu bar and go down to Close, I'm not changing the original image. I put that out as a template file instead. Now I'm going to go back to File, and I'm going to do New, and then when I do that, I click on Templates, and it's empty. And to me, that's like super confusing. Like, why don't I see my template? And the reason why is it's not automatically parsing through the folders on your computer. It doesn't automatically link and show you all of the templates that you've created. You have to tell it which folder or folders you've got. Now this actually is more intuitive once you understand this, because in the first place I was like, I just want one place for all my templates. But now what you can do is you can create templates for different clients. So if you have client folders and you have like an assets folder, if you're as organized as I am, you like to keep everything nice and organized, what you can do is just click add folder, and now you just go into that folder. You don't select a file. You're actually just showing it the parent folder that has all of the templates that you have grouped together. And now I just click select folder, and there it is. So what you've got now is a series of kind of like folders that contain your templates. And I'd already created another template before. I'll give you 100,000 bonus points if you know what TV show this is from. But oh, it says it right there on the screen, so I'll give you the points anyway. But that's what I've done now, is I've created these templates, and you can put whatever you want in them. We'll create some more useful templates later in the series here. But notice now when I double click on Michael Jackson and it opens up, now it's got my guides in there, and I could put other like objects in there. I could do some really cool masking effects and stuff like that. And so I just wanted to show you the basics of how to use those templates so that you can get started on those. So you need to do the export first. When you get the template set up, do export as template, put it in the folder, and then you need to go into your box here, and you need to go into your templates, and you need to just navigate by clicking that add folder and show it where to go. So that's all of those items. There are lessons in here as well, but you're not going to need those because I'm going to get way deeper in the series here. If you have specific things you want me to cover, I will prioritize those things, but I do want to spend just a minute talking about a couple of these other things. 9 items on the menu bar for new. So you have the ability to create a panorama. And that, of course, is when you stitch different photos together. Many devices, whether it be cameras or phones now, have the ability for you just to click once and then you move, and it seamlessly stitches everything together for you as one large panorama. But sometimes you have different images that you want to stitch together, and so you can just click and take a picture, click and take a picture really quickly. I almost think that's better than the panorama, because you look goofy when you're standing someplace and you're standing there doing that. But if you just take a couple different pictures, that's pretty quick. So new panorama, that allows you to add different images and stitch them together. Again, we're not getting into the weeds on what and how to use these. I'm just giving you kind of the tour. If you want to, you can do a new stack. When you do new stack, you can add different images and you can actually composite them. So it's like layering, but a good example, like a practical use case, would be if you wanted to use your camera on a tripod to take pictures of the clouds on a beautiful day, and then you take different pictures at different intervals. You can create a really cool effect by bringing them together as a new stack, and then mathematically you can actually get a really cool effect without using like a neutral density filter on your camera. You can do some pretty cool stuff in there as well. You also have the ability to do a focus merge. HDR merge is before that. So high dynamic range, the idea here is that you take pictures of different exposure values, and when you do that, you can create a very cool effect so that your dark spots are really dark, the light spots are visible as well. But you need to think about, when you're taking your photos, you need to do like different exposure values, and then you can bring them in as a high dynamic range. And so that, again, you just go in and you can add those. So it's cool that they provide these different options here. The other one is focus merge, and that would be, for example, if you're doing macro photography and you have a macro lens and you're focusing on very specific points. You're setting your focus up on different points, like on a person's face, forehead, nose, chin, whatever. What you can do then is you can take all of those images together and you can create a composite using the focal ranges off that device. And so that's cool that you've got that ability. You also have the astrophotography stack, and this allows you, if you have images that you've taken of the stars, you can actually pull in. There's a very precise way that you create these images, and so you'll have like light values, dark values, and you'll have a whole set of different images, and Affinity Photo has the ability to read those in, and then you can actually composite those together to give you some really cool stitching. And so if you've got different blurs and you've got different granularities and grains, you can clean that up within the astrophotography stack. And so that actually pulls up a whole new screen here. I don't know why they don't treat this as its own unique persona. I'll just go ahead and cover that in this video too, just as a quick overview. Are you sure you want to cancel the stacking? I'll say yes. But they have this astrophotography stack. And then the new batch job, this is also very cool. We'll definitely spend more time in this later, but if you have a bunch of different images that you want to automatically size to a certain aspect ratio, like you want to do 1024 by 768 on all of these images, then you can do that and you can tell it which file formats you want. And so it just allows you to very quickly go through. Like if you're manually doing that, if you're doing a save as, or exporting over and over one by one, like you can use the batch feature to do this much more quickly. And in Photoshop, you've got the ability to create batch operations too, which saves you a ton of time, and you can assign keyboard shortcuts in Photoshop to that. But here you just do new batch job. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about here in the application tours, we're hugging the upper left of the application here, is these 5 different options here. The first one is photo persona. This is the core of the application. This is where you're going to be doing your image editing. When you open up an image here and you're playing around in it, I love the single bead of sweat on the Indiana Jones character, but this is going to be your photo persona. And so all of the tools that you see are going to be laid out to allow you to do your raster image manipulation here. You can put text on the screen, you can get rid of objects that don't belong, you can change the hue and saturation, you can work with different channels and the RGB, CMYK. Very powerful editor in here, and that's the main screen. You always can go back to this. If the interface changes and you go, whoa, what happened? I don't understand where I'm at. This might be because you've left the photo persona, which is the heart of Affinity Photo, and you've switched over to one of these other ones. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time because each one of these is probably its own episode in the series here. But if you go into liquefy persona, you can just very quickly, I'll change the size of my cursor there. I'm using the bracket keys on the keyboard, left bracket to make it smaller, right bracket to make it bigger. And then what I can do is I can like kind of stretch things out here. So I can kind of melt his face if I want to. But the liquefy filter, it just allows you to use this mesh that's overlaid on the screen, and then you can change the view. So it's fun, and there's a lot of settings in here, but that is the liquefy persona. If you go into the develop persona, this allows you to work with raw images. And if you work in raw and you open up one of those files, it's going to default you into the develop persona. So we're going to spend more time in develop later on. Then you also have tone mapping, where you can go in and you can change the different aesthetics of the image. So you've got some presets in here, but then you can go in and you can change over on the right hand side. They've got specific things for your tone mapping. And then the last one here, this is the export persona. I'll click cancel on that. And then the export persona, this allows you to export your images and do things like slicing. So if you have a web page layout and you want to slice it up into different pieces, you can actually go in and use the export persona as well. And we'll come back to that in a future video as well. But I just mentioned that because the default here is to go into your photo persona. And if you want to, if you go into your edit settings and you go into your shortcuts, you also have, notice these, all of these different personas, you have different shortcuts that apply within these different personas as well. So I mentioned the keyboard shortcuts before. It's important to realize that these can be context sensitive depending on which persona you are in. You may have different options available to you, and the keyboard shortcuts could be modified to be different as well. All right, so that is it for the beginning of the series here. I've got a ton more videos planned out, so please like, share, comment, subscribe if you're not subscribed, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video soon. Take care. Bye.